Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, Capital Markets Analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we've got Simone Cimiluca-Radzins. She's the CEO of Kalogia, a CPA, living in France. You're a California native, though. Is that right?
Portland native, but lived in California long enough to call it home.
All right. Well, welcome to the podcast.
All of the different news sources and all of that it's hard to kind of filter and even know what makes sense because you know, especially in cannabis, everything is happening so quick. Like you just follow one state and that's enough of a job. But if you have a keen mind to like knowing all of the different states or knowing what's happening internationally, it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even having an opinion where brands don't matter, that was pretty controversial 2 years ago when I made that statement. And now you're starting to see the difference between people walking in and asking about the highest THC at the lowest price point to asking about a trusted brand. That's finally starting to come to fruition. Whereas 2 years ago, I said that people were like, oh, really? Go fuck yourself. Brands are everything. I'm like, you obviously don't know the industry because you think it's a consumer product right now. It's not. It's THC and CBD are a commodity, not an ingredient. Not yet. It's not normalized yet.
It's not normalized yet. And I mean, even just doing some of this research before this interview, I've always thought that cannabis is a commodity. I've always looked at it like looking at people's projections, like, okay, sure, you're expecting, I mean, a few years ago, people were still expecting like $2,000 a pound wholesale in California. And I'm like, no, you're crazy. And increasing that amount instead of decreasing it. And I think that's like one of the main reasons where we've started to see so many companies go under or investors just pissed off because nobody's getting the return that they anticipated or forecasted.
Exactly. And it's funny too, because within this article somewhere, you know, there's price per pounds.
Yeah. I made a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Okay.
Had to.
So within here, there's some footnotes about pricing and people are like, I think the pricing is going to go up and we'll get to it, I guess. But it's funny how people really think that prices are going to be, that stay there. So I met a guy at MJ BizCon in 2017. He's like, I'm going to put my entire life savings into growing hemp. I'm going to buy an extractor. I'm going to buy, all this equipment, and you're like, oh, really? Cool story. Cause, it's going to be pennies on a dollar. And he's like, no, it's selling for $7,000 a kilo.
Right.
And there's people right now in Illinois. Oh yeah, pounds are going for $2,000-$3,000. It's great. I'm jumping in. Man, you need to look at the other prices, in other states like Oklahoma's screwed.
Right. I mean, it was 4,000 and now it's hold on, I have it right now. 1,000 and 2,800. And it was at its prime 4,000 a pound. Oklahoma. But just thinking about it, like we've been on the West Coast, we've been in states that have had some form of regulation or a market. And then I think about like the East Coast states or even the Midwest, and they predominantly had got their cannabis from West Coast illicit market until it's been legalized. So they were paying a premium. Right. So I think so maybe their thought is like, oh, well, we had been paying this premium for quite some. Maybe that's why they're coming in with this information, because like, where are they getting these facts that they can assume, oh, I'm going to make 4,000 a pound? That's just bonkers.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that people think that they're going to maintain that price point without seeing it as a commodity. It's wild. Too many licenses, too many people not knowing what the hell they're doing. It's crazy.
Yes.
No doubt. So you're in Europe? Are you in France?
I'm in France right now. It's evening time.
What do you got going on? What's going on? What are you doing?
We moved here 2 weeks ago.
That's crazy. You moved there.
It's crazy. It's so crazy. So Jan and I got married earlier this year, and I've been watching the European market. He's from France. I'd always been like, want to get over here. And 2019, we just kind of like started planning it and made it happen. And it is 2 weeks today that I've been here.
Wow.
Yeah. It's wild. Like just even like the CBD market here so I'm living in Nice, so living in the south of France, and there's 11 CBD shops that are here. And so I'm trying to figure out a little bit more about this, but there's no full regulation on it. but they're okay. Like the government's, it's kind of like California was before 2016, where there's like an eye to, yes, this is happening. It's okay, but no full regulation. So it's wild. I'll have a lot more next time we talk to tell you, because I'm just like kind of trying to dig in.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Cool.
Are you coming to Cannabis?
I don't think so. I've got a couple of projects that are bogging me down. It was like hurry up and wait for a year to get the World Trade Center on board with CBD. So they've got an export store. And so finally got that approved last week after like 15 months. So I'm going to start posting some products on their intraweb. They've got 300 offices in 99 countries. So anybody that's got a World Trade Center membership anywhere in the world, they type in CBD, they're going to see only my products.
Stop.
Yeah. So I'm gonna sell slots for $100 a month.
Yeah.
It's translated into 11 languages, available in 155 markets for domestic too. I mean, there's a World Trade Center in LA, Las Vegas, Miami. So it's not just international, it'll be domestic too. So it's gonna be pretty cool.
Oh my God. Well, we got to connect later on this, because I'm just so curious, because all of the French products, they said they're from the US. I'm like, I don't believe that, but from Italy, from Czech Republic, and all of that. So I'm just so fascinated by just the international movement.
Yeah, me too. I think there's going to be a huge market for that. There's a lot of different rules. I mean, there's 14 different states in the US that have their own rules. So yeah.
International is another one. Now we're talking about California.
Yep. That's a whole other region too.
Oh God, it's its own country. That's how I think of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have the 5th largest GDP. I think it's the US, China, Japan, and Germany, I think, are tied, and then California.
Yeah, and then France is even after. So I mean, you just think about it's huge.
Mm-hmm. So are you still doing, how do you pronounce this? Is it Kalogia or Kalogia?
I'm still doing Kalogia. I kind of relaunched it just recently.
Okay.
But it's not from that, like from all of the networking, all of the events, all of that, like I kind of narrowed it down to like, oh, well, what's the true value proposition? And it's training and education, right? Like that's it. So it's fully training focused on how to build a cannabis business and all that.
I met with some guys yesterday. Lofa Tatupu is a Seahawk, retired NFL player, and he started a company called Zone In CBD. And they want to go international. They want to do some things. The market's crazy. And so trying to help them kind of get this all over is one thing. But the hardest thing to do is educate and then sell. So I mentioned Top Tender. Ryan Porter owns this company called Top Tender. It's kind of an educational platform. So that's definitely the route to go in order to educate and then sell, especially at the bud tender level. I mean, assuming that people are going into rec shops, because most people are not. I think 2/3 or 3/4 of all sales are outside of the rec shops. But how do you educate and then sell? That's tough.
Yeah. Wait, 2/3 of sales are outside of the rec shops. What's that mean exactly? From consumers? So their delivery or their
CBD sales are primarily at convenient or Rite Aid, CVS, Walgreens, Bartell's, gas stations. A lot of gas stations.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was a Brightfield or a BDS Analytics. I can't remember which report came out, but according to them, it's somewhere between like 65 and 75% of sales are outside of the rec market or rec stores.
Wow. And that's just for CBD.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Wow. That's shocking. I mean, it makes sense. I feel like the moment the hemp bill passed, right? There, the farm bill, everything kind of just like skyrocketed. Everything's on Amazon, all of that. But it's curious. It's just like, at what point? I mean, I'm curious when the actual lab testing and the true regulation is going to come down. Because, how many of those products that are in those convenience stores will make it past the regulation? Do you have any insight?
What's that?
Do you have any insight onto that? Like, I mean, when is regulation going to happen for CBD?
I'm looking at Curaleaf. I'm looking at the FDA, and I'm looking at Charlotte's Web. So Charlotte's Web, I was really surprised that they got a letter from the FDA about claims. So, if GW Pharma has their way, everything's going to have to go through rigorous testing. I don't know. I don't really have insight as to which way, because I think it could, you see the new budget that Trump proposed. I think that's political. I think that's bullshit. I think he's trying to appease conservatives. But it does throw some roadblocks in the way. It does add some confusion. I think they're going to make it a dietary supplement, but not until corporate America is ready to take advantage of it.
Gosh, that's so interesting. I think about it, though, that despite the market kind of just being flooded with so much CBD, that any business that's actually able to operate, they can do it online. They don't have 280E. They seem like they can actually have access to payment processing and banking at such a higher level than a cannabis business, that it's just curious. And I think that so many people can find probably, I don't know if it's a quick or a long-lasting revenue stream with it. Right?
Yeah. Time will tell.
Time will tell. Time will tell. I was just shocked that there's 11 stores in this small town. Yeah. It's like less than 400,000 people that are living here, but over there's 12 million visitors that come here every year. So a pretty crazy kind of return. And I'm just so curious to watch it happen.
But how many are going to be repeat buyers? Because what we're seeing is isolate products with high milligrams. That's what people are looking at, is the milligrams. They're not looking at full spectrum versus an isolate or broad. They're just looking at price and milligrams. So until we get to a point where there's a trust factor, like I mentioned, trusted brands, right? Until you trust CBD the same way you trust vitamin C, until you trust the brand as much as you do with NyQuil, they're not going to come back, because they're not going to feel anything. And if you don't have like that sensory experience, you're like, well, this is just snake oil. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't make me relax. I didn't feel high, or whatever their expectations are. Until they have a full spectrum real product, I think there's going to be a lot of snake oil and just a lack of repeat buyers ultimately.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I think there's that hype of, oh my God, CBD will help you with everything. Somebody consumes it. They're like, they found it on Amazon. They found it in Walgreens. They found it wherever. And they're like, that didn't do anything for me. And then they've almost tuned out CBD.
Oh, I think 2018 fourth quarter was the peak in terms of Google searches. But I think that when you have CBD leggings and $195 CBD pillow, you're deteriorating the brand.
CBD.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fascinating. So do you think that there's this brand then of THC, that of true cannabis? Because you know what I mean? Like, where are we there?
That's more of a safety factor instead of a health concern, I think. So with the trusted brands on the THC level, you're going to be looking at heavy metals. You're going to be looking at hardware with vaping. So as long as they don't douse that in gasoline and have metal leaching out of it, as well as where is it grown? With nanotech, it's interesting because it crosses the blood-brain barrier, but it brings everything with it. So if you are growing heavy metals, those metals are crossing the blood-brain barrier also. And so your body is designed to filter all of that. But with technology, you're going to bring all those heavy metals in, and it's going to cause, dementia and Parkinson's and all kinds of issues. I think that's my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but I just think that there's going to be some issues with nanotech and with just the lack of like, even with vape, like people thought vitamin E, that's safe. I'm going to throw this in there and cut it with that. I don't think it was malicious. I think just the lack of information, the lack of knowledge, the lack of testing is making people look at just a general, I don't know. They're just it's novice and there's a lot of unprofessionals. So we just kind of need more testing and more PhDs, I think.
Yeah, you're right, because it's like this, like, how can we make the product cheaper? How can we just make it quote unquote better, with then coupled with this technology that can really do a lot. It's kind of dangerous. It's like putting a gun in somebody's hand that doesn't know how to shoot it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be.
So I feel like every day there's something interesting to talk about. And I mean, you think you can kind of cover one aspect of the cannabis industry, and then you talk about, nanotechnology, the blood-brain barrier. I'm like, oh, okay. Hello, Google, after this.
And a $1 billion write-off from Canopy Growth after they fire the CEO. I mean, $1 billion write-off? That's crazy talk. Yeah, it's nuts.
Wow.
So yeah, this industry is interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation, but it's going to help those companies that are able to survive. There's a lot of value investors that are just circling around like vultures, waiting for that value.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like that's happening a lot right now in California, right? Like it's just with even one of the links that you provided, this one guy who had been waiting and watching California swooping in finally in 2020, 4 years after kind of regulation hits, 2 years after like the first adult use sale. And I think I had always thought about this. I think we've probably even had conversations like everything, like just wait for the market to kind of unfold, because the whole state's regulatory system, taxation structure, I mean, it's not identical to Washington, but the multi-layered taxes, and then plus these 3 regulatory bodies, like most professionals that I was working with at that time were like, this is not a recipe. Like, don't maybe invest all of this money right now into this industry, into this state.
Yeah, because the regulations are going to continue to change. And so if you are spending your time pivoting to try and stay on top of potential rules instead of business as usual, you're going to be spinning your wheels and not able to focus on adding more SKUs. And I've seen that in Washington. People are just kind of spinning around going, oh, there's going to be a THC cap of 10% on concentrates. And so they're focusing on that instead of adding more products or expanding, automating, whatever they should be focused on. They can't, because this state, the regulations are constantly changing, and it's impossible for people that aren't necessarily business savvy to deal with. They don't, I mean, a lot of these people don't have anyone holding them accountable. It's fascinating to me not seeing CFOs, controllers, capital markets analysts, and yet they're getting millions of dollars, whether it's Kush.com, Ease at 166 million, they wasted that. How do you have $166 million and not make an app? Give me 10 grand. I'll make an app that looks like Uber all day long. Where did you blow that 166 million? That's crazy.
It's so crazy. And also, I mean, I think about if you have no money and you're trying to launch something, you think about your minimal viable product. Are you getting traction? Are you creating that value proposition? Can you test your business model, and can you get anything? And it's just fascinating to see companies that have multiple $1 million rounds at the very beginning who decide to hire so many people, who decide to invest in marketing strategies that aren't really even talking to the consumers or really working on, I even imagine building the foundation. But I'm curious though where it goes. Really, like that $1 billion write-off, like, okay, but where did that go for them to write off? Like, where did they spend that money? Who approved that spend?
No accountability. So the board of directors aren't holding CEOs accountable. Investors are just sitting back waiting for a return without really even if they do have a board seat, they aren't holding people accountable. I see this over and over. It doesn't matter if it's a grow, it doesn't matter if it's an ancillary business, and it doesn't even matter if it's like an airline company. I'm working with all kinds of people, less and less cannabis people. 2019, I made a goal of trying to deal with the least amount of cannabis people as possible, because I've just been so tired of the inability of these folks to essentially take my advice and try to scale, automate, expand. They're just too inundated with their state regulations to do anything. So I'm moving on. So I'm working with a portfolio manager to make an artificial intelligence based algorithm. It's got 19 stocks within this portfolio. We're up 20% over 90 days. ETFMG, Alternative Harvest, ticker symbol MJ, is down negative 33% in the same time period. So we're up over 50%, killing it. And so that's what I'm trying to focus on. I'm also dealing with an airline in Canada transporting plants and product coast to coast. And so that's my goal, is to try and help the industry those that are able to receive help is kind of where I'm focusing my attention on, because I just see so much consolidation in this space. I don't want to get wrapped up into it.
Oh, I completely agree. And I found it so frustrating. I think when did you start? Because I remember we met in 2015. When did you dip your toes into cannabis? Was it 2012 or earlier?
I quit my job at Capital One managing a $650 million fund on St. Patty's Day 2014. And I spent the next 9 months trying to, I pulled together some software development engineers and project managers from Amazon to automate the grow system. So point of sale. So instead of being on a timer, you have lumens, you have conditional formatting for soil moisture, visual. If the leaf is tacoing, it'll send you an alert asking if you want to add nutrients or reduce the fan, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But my team got recruited to Time Magazine. They got paid a bunch of money, and they brought their online web presence from 0 to 1 billion within 1 year. So kudos to them. Then I transitioned to the Seattle Superchronic Cafe and launched in 4/20 of 2015.
I remember that. And I remember we did the Cannabis Finance Boot Camp, and I remember like the whole kind of coffee thing. That was a fun time. So you've been in it. Yeah, you've been able to see it. I think for me, what's so frustrating is that I had never worked in regulation until working in cannabis. And I'm imagining I had done compliance and I had done more kind of contractual regulation from international consulting, but I had never worked directly with, lobbying, government officials, all of that. And I'd always thought, but I guess it's been proven now in cannabis, is that like business and regulation, they don't go hand in hand. And I think that this industry has such energy, and it's so exciting it's a startup culture all the time. There's always something new. And that energy where you can use it in so many other industries, it just gets flashed and squashed by regulation. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, the frustrating part, and where I'm always trying to figure out how do you solve this, because we've only got, 11 states that have legalized for adult use. How do you talk to these regulators and see, like, what is the system to say, okay, we know regulation is going to be tough, but how do we actually make it easier so a cannabis business will actually see a return in 2 or 3 years instead of having to do $1 billion write-off? Like, I'm curious if it's just time. I mean, that makes sense that it would just be time to learn from people's mistakes. But then I see how California, even when the regulation hit, didn't look at what happened in Washington, didn't echo what was happening in Colorado. You think about Colorado, that's quite a stable market, right? And so then I think, well, the United States is a freaking huge country. Each state in itself has its own kind of way of thinking, but how do you apply the methodology of kind of business to help this brand of THC expand to what it needs to be, so we can only work in cannabis, right? Like that to me has been kind of the focus point of frustration. I don't have a solution to it.
I don't either. I think it's going to take some time for a lot of these altruistic individuals that don't have the bandwidth, mental capacity, experience, business savviness to survive. Those individuals that aren't paying themselves a salary, they love the plant, they love the product, and they haven't paid themselves in so long. So when the economy dips, they're going to have to go find a job. When that happens, that consolidation and the resulting capitulation, the forced closures, those that can't create a co-op model, they're just going to go out of business. That's going to create a lot of sales and opportunities for those that are still around. But I think it's going to take that collapse for the market to settle down. You can take a look at the coffee industry. Starbucks opened up, being publicly traded, it's other people's money. So you don't care if you're losing money for market share, and investors don't seem to care either. It's weird. So if you just open up more shops and you put mom and pops out of business and you lower your price, we've seen that with Amazon. There's a diaper company in the East Coast. They lowered their prices because the diaper company wouldn't sell the company to Amazon. So Amazon's like, fine, we're gonna dump our products on you at a lower price, lose money till you go out of business, and then we're just gonna raise them back up. Now, that's corporate America.
It's economics though too, right? The lower the price, the bigger the demand. And
the commoditization is real.
Yeah. What episode are you on?
I lost count last year. I think I have like 500 videos. Some of those, well, so I started in like March of last year and I did one a day, but it was like, I started off doing book on tape. So I was just reading articles because somebody was like, hey man, can you read this marijuana venture article so that when I'm on my way to work, I don't have to read it. So I was like, okay, I'll just do book on tape. But that got so boring after like 2 or 3 months. I was like, I don't even want to do this anymore.
Yeah, because it's kind of like just looking at something in a box. Like, okay, I can only read this. You have no engagement. Kind of might be. You have to you want to spice it up, but you might be a little bit monotone. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to chase likes and shares. Like this is my own style of podcast, but at the same time, it's got to be something that's worthy of consuming. So it's Kaizen. It's constant improvement for the better. I'm just trying to do what I think I want to watch. And that's about it.
Who listens to your podcast? Mostly entrepreneurs or
more like retail investors, more than I thought. So my target audience is investors and entrepreneurs, but I'm finding out that maybe half or 3/4 are retail investors. So mom and pops who are interested in this space, but not as a business. So I'm trying to add more stuff for them instead of business owners.
Yeah.
But people so when I look at my stats, it's Spain and Vietnam, and it's weird.
Really?
Yeah, like the top, like Saigon is one of the top cities that listen. It's weird. It's a lot of international.
That's so cool. That is so cool. You got to go visit.
Yeah, I want to get out to Spain too. So hopefully next year we can do that.
Yeah, definitely.
So how can they get a hold of you if somebody's listening here in Europe or Asia or wherever they are, and they're interested in what you've got going on? How can people get a hold of you?
Well, they can get a hold of me on my LinkedIn. So it's LinkedIn, and then my username is simone.cr. So Simone Cimiluca-Radzins. They can search me or go to my website, simonecr.com, or connect with me on Kalogia. I feel like I'm pretty easy, or they can shoot me an email, simone@kalogia.com. I'm just sometimes harder to send a message back to, but I definitely am excited.
And you're currently 9 hours ahead of Pacific Standard Time?
Yes.
Okay. So you're going to be late responding to people. So that's just because you're on the other side of the planet right now.
Yeah. I've been sending people these emails at probably 2 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm like, they probably think I'm crazy.
Well, all of that will be in the show notes. So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. I want to thank my guest, Simone Cimiluca-Radzins. She's with Kalogia. Appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.